Bing bong. I am back with another edition of the State of Bitcoin podcast. I got a very special guest here as well. But before we get started, I want to shout out myNode at myNode BTC and mynodebtc.com for helping me get set up on podcasting 2.0. So if you are on any of those podcasting 2.0s like Breeze or Fountain, you could find me. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to stream me sats. But now I have a very special guest, Zach at BTC Bap, and I'm pulling him up. Zach, how are we doing today?
What's up, Brandon? Well, man, we're surviving. We're surviving the bear market.
Yeah, the dirty bear market. We're hanging in there. We're hanging in there. So we actually got connected a while back. We were talking a little bit pre-show. I think you were one of the first ones that kind of came up and did the Bitcoin happy hour spaces with us on Fridays at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we got connected through there, and it's been a journey. I know you said now you got some obligations that you actually have to work at that time. I mean, what's up with that? But you're doing some cool stuff. So why don't you get into I guess some of the stuff that you do at Casa and like what Casa is?
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, first off, thanks for having me on here. I guess this is the second type of show that I've been on of yours. I think producing content through the bear market is what really makes the people stand out from like just the pump and dumpers. So it's great to see you powering through this, man. As far as like Casa, I mean, I was doing a lot of Bitcoin stuff like when I was a financial advisor, and then after the money printer go burr in 2020, just decided that I really should start looking into Bitcoin more full time. And then in early 2021, got linked up with Casa, and I'm now doing sales there, running, and we are really a company focused on empowering people to take self custody. It's a very specific but very important mission. I think Square, Block, Open, it really focuses. I think their mission, and I really like it, is like accessing financial services to the world, and Robinhood's is, in more or less words, the same thing. And I think we do have a similar grand vision where we're trying to really make sure that in order for people to take self-custody of their crypto assets and maybe other things in the future, like, Block's working on that identity protocol. So in order to do that, it has to be as easy as possible, right? There's that resistance to change, and it can't be just as good. It's got to be better than the ones that you're currently using. And in addition to all the host of benefits that private keys can bring you. So working on in the daytime, helping people take self-custody so that we can pull all the coins off exchanges. I think it's the most important thing you can do. Only you can take self-custody of your coins.
Yeah, exactly right. Not your keys, not your coins. And I think
amen.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of stuff circle around Twitter right now that has a lot of people worried about it. So I think a lot of people are probably going to start flocking to you and Casa to take self custody, because I think that's one of the biggest benefits of Bitcoin is just being able to physically hold and take care of your own, take ownership of the keys and everything like that. But let's bring it back a bit. So Zach, why don't you tell me a little bit about your orange pill story? Like, how did you find Bitcoin, and did you like immediately start running down the rabbit hole, or was it more kind of like a delayed thing, and then it just kind of brought you until like 2020, the money printer go burr, until you really just jumped full in?
Yeah, and it's I feel like every time I tell the story, I tell it a little bit different, right? But it's definitely one that I've told similar before. I grew up playing video games, learning about World of Warcraft and the auction house and gold, and then learned about gold, the real gold, not just gold in the games. And of course, then that when I studied economics in college, it really had me ask a lot of questions about that. And so sort of understood the hard money thesis, and it didn't really dawn on me the hard money thesis, like how can something be digital but be like that same reproducible nature, because right, like it's very easy for me to copy files, NFTs, copy paste, right? So for a long time I, like, admittedly didn't do enough research to really understand it. I saw crypto assets as more like a thing that you should diversify your portfolio in, because I was a financial advisor, and that's like what financial advisors do to make sure they don't lose their clients money. They diversify so that they can keep charging a fee. But I took a similar approach, and then in 2020 I really started asking myself, like, I think I read something by Robert Breedlove or Croesus or something, where I was like, no, dude, Bitcoin is the money. And I was like, oh shit, really? Oh man, I can't let this one go. And yeah, I've been like kind of fascinated. Obsessed, it has a negative connotation, but like, so I won't use that word, but really like a fascination with the idea, to a point of obsession almost, where I've tried to consume everything I can about topics. And um yeah, man. So at this point, I'm really kind of, I've always been like nah, no rules. You should follow, you should do good things. Like, you should be a good person, but you shouldn't necessarily have to follow the rules if they're stupid rules. Um, and so I've always been sort of like independent in that way, I guess. So Bitcoin's very much like that. And now I'm trying to help push that idea towards the world, and free us from the shackles of the central bankers.
Yeah, it's that's definitely interesting that you have a background in like financial advising, because I think more and more now people and like financial advisors as a whole are kind of getting into Bitcoin, and I think that's just because a lot of people know of it and have heard of it by now. But when you were back, when you were a financial advisor, what was like the, I guess, perception of Bitcoin with your colleagues? Was it sort of like a hush hush kind of thing, or were people actually like kind of openly talking about Bitcoin?
Yeah, man. So I started as a financial advisor in 2014 at Merrill Lynch in the South. And Bitcoin was very much like, I mean, really, that was like before I was even introduced to it, though I had heard of it before. My roommate had told me about it in 2012, when we were, I think, juniors in college, sophomore, something like that. And but I didn't have any or anything. And so anyway, it didn't like really, I didn't really connect the whole dots until mid 2016, and then I saw it start running up, and I remember I was like, wait, it's 200. Oh shoot, now it's 2000. And when I got to 2000, I was like, okay, this is like, I got to do this now, right? But it was very much like, even throughout 2016, 2017, it was resistance. And then, for a couple weeks there, all of my colleagues got into Ripple and, like, Tron and all the other crap. And I finally felt some vindication at first. I was like, you see. And then everybody got burned, and I felt like I was a bad guy all of a sudden, because I, like, got caught up in it. I'm sure you did too, right? We all learned from our lessons. But um yeah, so I think now, that was part of the reason that I really decided, when I left the firm I was at in 2020, like, to not go into another firm like that, and instead like pivot careers, because I just felt like it was still, there's so much internal resistance, right? And honestly, I Bitcoin's it's an important, it's a really important goal, and there's better ways that I can fight the fight, if you will, and try to convince people to adopt it is not really where I'm best suited. What I'm good at is really helping take some things that are complicated and distill it down. Like, how do you like construct like a robust, wallet or security plan or financial plan, like before I even was into Bitcoin, right? Like, so how do you construct a good legacy plan for your Bitcoin and like think about the threat models? And it's like, that's where I'm focusing on because there's still a long way to go on adoption, man. But it has incentives. The incentives are to refer your friends. Number go up. So it's a good viral mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you made a couple, really interesting points there. But my next question was going to be along the lines of orange pilling, and you kind of already alluded to that about how that maybe that's not your expertise. But now I'm curious is if like kind of the way you in your previous job where you were kind of structuring financial plans and other things, do you think that that kind of helps you explain Bitcoin to potential clients now, or maybe helps them or help explain maybe the power of holding your own keys and using like a multi-sig or something along those lines?
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I think that one of the things that really got me so fascinated with investing was compound interest. I was it Warren Buffett said compound interest is like the eighth wonder of the world or whatever he said.
Yeah,
And
so that.
that exponential force was so cool. And I was like, if you just save early and like save frequently, holy crap, you'll like be rich before you know it, right? And then like when I got to be like 15, 20, the rules changed. Well, I guess they already were the same, but like the money printer went burr, after 2008, right? And I started feeling like I was conned. So I it seems to me that like there's a better way to like do this, right? And I'm not sure that people will adopt Bitcoin without the incentives. So, um, uh, sorry, go. What's your what was exactly your question? Because I think went off topic a little bit there.
Yeah, no worries, but I agree with you there, right? So I think that even myself, the reason I got in was like number go up, right? So and I kind of dabbled around in the shitcoinery as well. But at that time I was driving Uber to driving drunk kids back and forth from the bars in grad school and just using that money to buy Bitcoin because I heard of Bitcoin. I heard a lot of people made money off of it. So I thought, why not try and trade it? And then that's when I kind of learned the hard money principles. But the original question was essentially like, did you think that the background that you have in financial services, if that helps you kind of orange pill people? Because
Right.
you kind of mentioned it a little bit before that orange pilling wasn't necessarily like your expertise. But you're a little bit better at like explaining the financial plan of sorts.
Yeah. Well, I think like I thank you for reiterating that too, and I think the 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 hard part is kind of connecting the big picture dots, right? They say like Bitcoin fixes this, right? I know we always say that, and like it fixes a lot of things, but like you really have you understand the colossalness of what Bitcoin is when you connect those dots together. And I think part of having like a good financial plan, part of having a good legacy plan is looking at, from a very high level and seeing like, all right, where is there strengths and weaknesses in this plan? Like, and Bitcoin to me has, it's so thought out, right? Like it's such a simple white paper. There's not that much, but they've distilled this very complicated, very complex structure to 8 pages or 9 pages, whatever the white paper is. And I think that there's strength in simplification. That's why you have a financial plan. It takes these like assumptions and calculations, actuarial tables based on life expectancy, growth rate, discount rates, all these things, and then distills it into like a thing that's like, all right, you need to save $25 a month in order to reach your goals, like, and to some similar effect. That's what Casa aims to do too. It's like, hey, you've got this crazy, like, robust 3 of 5 multi-signature structure that's like, but like it's in your pocket and it's really easy. So, so I definitely think that there's like some, strengths. I think everything you do, right? Like every single step you take in life it should like build upon the last step in some way. Maybe you don't realize it right away.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think like we're kind of in this interesting realm where you said you experienced like 2008, or we're very close to it. I was in high school during that time, but kind of aware of what was going on, and now we're kind of at the heels, or maybe at maybe not at the heels, but getting close to maybe a potential recession and another down market, and we just had massive amount of money printing. So I think we're kind of in this weird place where a lot of millennials, if you want to call them that, or the younger generation, is also not only having to work a full-time job, whether it's pay off student loan debt or other things like that, but also kind of be their own financial advisor, or figure out ways to make their money go a little bit farther, right? So I think there's like that middle group of people where it's like, not only are they working a full-time job doing X, Y, or Z, but they're also having to become, a stock picker, or, look into Bitcoin or something else. So I think one of the great things about Bitcoin is that it has made it a lot easier for me. And I know a lot of other people, where instead of like, diving into a bunch of financials, or looking at, analyzing stock charts or anything like that, to just kind of, just DCA, and just,
Right.
like kind of just relax, and see that number is going to go up, and just have faith
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
Uh,
You shouldn't have to take risk to save. That's an absurd concept that I think only has existed for a very short period of time. Like,
yeah.
taking risk is how you grow your purchasing power. And there's a trade off, adequately so, for doing it. You can lose purchasing power too. Having to take risk just to maintain the status quo seems like blatant theft.
Hey, I agree with that. And that's a very powerful statement. I really like that as well. But you mentioned this phrase before, and I kind of have a bone to pick with it, but I want to see what your overall opinion is. This is like Bitcoin Twitter and Bitcoiners kind of as a whole get these little phrases in there, and they kind of like stick to it. But the Bitcoin fixes this phrase. Do you like, when you kind of explain or orange pill to people, or talk about Bitcoin, do you ever use that kind of like in a serious manner, or is it more of I guess just a general kind of like meme to you?
Yeah, I don't orange pill people anymore.
Yeah.
Um I think like I I went in the times that I've used that, it's been jokingly. Sort of like slap on the knee, like, hey, Bitcoin fixes that too. And the hilarious part is, like, if you know enough about it, you'll realize it really does affect so many things, from supply chains to accounts receivables to insurance to debt to, I mean, I could go on, right? But I don't I think like I haven't had much success in personal outcomes by telling people about Bitcoin. Um because the ones that I've told in bear markets get mad at me for not being more convincing. And in bull markets, they get mad at me because they bought the top. So I've just never found a beneficial strategy to tell people. And it's like kind of strange, right? Because the whole thing is like Bitcoin's supposed to be this viral thing, but people will figure it out on their own. And, I sort of, instead of just, if somebody asks about Bitcoin, I'm going to tell them, certainly. Like, I will, if somebody's truly inquisitive, like, I will happily spend hours with them. Um, But yeah, I don't know. There's like the Bitcoin community on Twitter has gotten a big ego check recently, myself included. Man, like it's not fun to be in bear markets. You just
Yeah,
stack.
yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think it's interesting too, like that. You're kind of having that difficulty orange pilling people, especially like with your financial or your. And I think maybe it has to deal with your background as like a financial advisor. Maybe they think like, if it was a stock or if it was a company or something, you would be able to time it or do that well. I don't know. Maybe it's just that kind of
Yeah,
perception
they
of.
look at me with that credibility and expect it to be instant gratification, and it's like, hey, like it's not. I'm telling you the work that I've done to understand how the properties are different than this. However, there's no guarantee. Like the number, sort of the ironic part, right? Is that like the whole point is not to denominate Bitcoin in dollars. So who cares what the dollar value is, right? But like for people to adopt it, that's the incentive. Price go up.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, back to the Bitcoin fixes this. I think, overall, like you said, the Bitcoin Twitter and a lot of people have kind of got a little got a little gut check recently with this bear market. And I kind of have a bone to pick with the Bitcoin fixes this little phrase and some of the catchphrases that Bitcoin Twitter uses, because I think we're getting to the point where almost everybody is kind of knowledgeable of Bitcoin or has heard of Bitcoin. And because of that, people are trying to poke holes into it. And so I think, people understand the Austrian economics of it or like the theory behind it. But I think like, Bitcoiners as a whole, that like in order to start to get some of these brilliant minds over, we're gonna have to start like being able to explain it in somewhat like of economic terms and explain some of the problems as well and like the hard money principles a little bit better instead of just shortening it down because I've been on quite a few Twitter spaces where that's essentially the message is just Bitcoin fixes this, and they try to leave it at there. And then people say, okay, well, there's a food shortage or there's something else like which doesn't really have to do with money, but obviously the underlying fiat standard has kind of caused this issue. Um, and so yeah, I just think like Bitcoin Twitter and plebs and everybody around has just like this is the time to put in the work and kind of like educate yourself a little bit more to figure out like next bull market, how do you get those bears that are right now like down your neck and kind of tell them like this is almost like anticipated or this was almost not necessarily expected, but kind of par for the course when it comes to Bitcoin. So yeah, I think like we're in an interesting time for sure. With a lot of stuff going on, but I still see like a lot of very positive news surrounding Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's not going away. It's just the U.S. dollar price is down right now temporarily. That's
Yeah.
the Fed is tightening. They'll be back. If I'm sure of one thing, somebody asked me this. They were like, "How are you so sure about Bitcoin?" And it's like, I'm not nearly as sure about Bitcoin's rise as I am about the dollar's demise. The dollar cannot. It's not going to increase in purchasing power over time. Like that's not going to happen. And because that is the case, something will probably have to take its place at one point or another. What's the best candidate? It's probably Bitcoin. It's not 100%, but doesn't matter. Well, like if we're in the United States, right? Like I think you're in the US, or if you're in Canada too, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm in Florida.
They'll be the derivatives of one another. It's like if Bitcoin doesn't succeed, well, we were the world's reserve currency. It collapsed. We're in trouble anyway. So It's your best bet. It's an asymmetric, good risk-adjusted bet. That's what you look for as a financial advisor. You look for good risk-adjusted returns.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's great. So, yeah. So that's a little bit about you and I guess the overarching Bitcoin space. But let's get into some current events or surrounding Bitcoin, and maybe the greater crypto markets as well. The first story, I talked a little bit about this last week, but the Oslo Freedom Forum. It was actually titled, the article that I saw was Bitcoin is Freedom. So yeah, I saw a lot of great things. The meeting was organized by the Human Rights Foundation, who CSO is Alex Gladstein. So if you're in the Bitcoin space or on Bitcoin Twitter, you've definitely heard of him, but he's a very well known Bitcoiner. The forum had a stream specifically for financial freedom with 13 different talks. So a few of those titles were Can Bitcoin Reach a Billion People? Check Your Financial Privilege, Bitcoin, the Environment, and Human Rights. It was streamed and it had a lot of big name Bitcoiners. And last week I wrote about Mahler's. And I talked about Mahler's potentially orange pilling the Norwegian government, but it seems like that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So have you heard, a lot of stuff coming out of this Freedom Forum, and what is overall like your opinion on some of these bigger conferences, kind of, spreading the word of Bitcoin to not only, other Bitcoiners, but to, potential government officials and potential, I guess, the average layman as well.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a good thing. I think the more people that you put this idea out that, hey, separation of money and state, that there's like 50 shades maximalism, like I see you laughing, man. And they're a mute though. But it's true though. Like I think that to some degree, like some people will say, no, like don't tell the central bankers all of our secrets. And it's like, no, maybe they're human beings. And if they knew any better, they would say, oh, central banking, there's a better way. So they say that like Bitcoin's for everyone, right? Like all these like canned statements, but I'm like in one camp, I'm against big anything, big pet, big pharma, big government, big ag, big dairy. That's probably the same thing. Big bread. But so the philosophy I think would apply at some point, like to just like, hey, these like huge events, who's constructing them and like what's their ulterior motive, But I think anything that pushes the ideals that I personally believe in, which is like independence and separation of money and state and personal independence and sort of personal responsibility, then like I like that. So it's sort of a black hole that once you learn about these sort of worldviews, I don't know that you really go back to the other way. That's why they say the orange pill, right? It's like the reference to the Matrix, where it's like you have the red pill and you never, So, so I'm for it. I'd actually would like to attend something like that if they ever do one on States.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I actually went to Bitcoin Miami, which was cool. It was my first kind of big Bitcoin related conference, but at the same time, there was quite a bit of shitcoinery going on there, and it wasn't like, and it was basically for people that obviously wanted to attend the Bitcoin conference, right? So it wasn't exactly something like this on this grand of scale. This one seemed like it would be a little bit more interesting to go to. It was more educational talks, whereas Bitcoin Miami is kind of like breaking news of companies and kind of explaining what companies are doing, and there was more focused on a few small countries here or there, but Yeah, the Oslo Freedom Forum definitely sounded awesome. Is like not only was it about Bitcoin, it was about a lot of other freedom principles as well, which is great that Bitcoin's even getting mixed in and grouped in with those principles as well. So I think overall it's just great publicity from what I could tell for Bitcoin, even though it doesn't have its own marketing team or anything like that, but. It seems like everybody's kind of spreading the good word all over the globe, and that's awesome to see.
Yeah, man. That's the thing is like there is no marketing team, right? So everything, unlike shitcoins, everything done to promote Bitcoin is either a scam, like to promote their affinity, or it's truly a virtuous promotion because they believe in the ideals. It's I think that like is an overlooked and understated aspect of Bitcoin.
Oh, 100%. And so on that point, Block, um, formerly known as Square, actually did a survey with Wakefield Research to survey people about the knowledge gaps in Bitcoin and what the strengths of the network were. So some of the interesting answers I saw here were pretty, I would say, like encouraging. And I don't know if I kind of would say I've maybe thought around like these percentages were expected, but it was cool. So the first question was, why should somebody buy Bitcoin? And the most common answer was people with below average income frequently note using Bitcoin as a way to send money and buy goods and services than people with the above average income. Another good stat was that another, I think, kind of like interesting stat was 40% of people believe that they have a fair to expert knowledge of Bitcoin, while 51% also said that they would not buy Bitcoin because they didn't know enough about it. But my favorite statistic of them all was that 88% of people surveyed in this knew or have heard of Bitcoin, where the next closest was 43% have heard of Ethereum. So even though Bitcoin doesn't really have a marketing team, it seems like it's doing pretty well itself. So, what do you think, I guess, about just overall general Bitcoin knowledge? Do you still think we have like a far ways to go, or do you think we're kind of getting closer to maybe like hyper Bitcoinization or people just generally accepting Bitcoin?
Dude, we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. Mentally, we have a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I was kind of surprised that I wasn't surprised that 88% of people have heard of it because I feel like Bitcoin's been in the news, but I was surprised that 40% felt like they had a fair to expert knowledge of it.
That's
That
exactly why I'm saying that, because there's this shoot, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but it's basically like the expert bias. It's like I think I'm better than I actually am, and so people are like they get it, and so unfortunately, I've found that people don't adopt Bitcoin until they are faced with a oh shit moment, as I like to call them, and that oh shit moment is one of three things. It's either a market wide moment, oh shit, Coinbase announced they're gonna, go bank, or actually that's probably not an adoption thing, but like, oh shit, the Fed printed $10 trillion. That would be one where a lot of people were like, oh, maybe Bitcoin, because there's only 21 million coins, maybe this is a better thing to hold. There's an oh shit moment, like personally, or there is a uh, something that happens to someone in their close circle. And usually it's one of these three things, and that's a trigger, right? So I just wonder how, like, when I say it's like we've got a long way to go mentally, second half of that statement was going to be that second, like it's an exponential thing. So even though we got a long way to go, that long way may be covered pretty quickly when the triggers present themselves. So if like I was at the grocery store the other day, and this woman was I was shouting at someone and my roommate going shopping, and I was like, "Hey, man, steaks are half off, dude. Let's stock up." And then this woman overheard me, and she was like, "Inflation, am I right?" And I was like, "Whoa, yes, inflation." So these types of like realizations are going to happen on a person by person level, and so got a long way to go, but we can cover that long way in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think especially with the Fed printing so much money, I think that's the reason why we're kind of seeing that 88% number of people have heard of Bitcoin because whether it's being marketed as an inflation hedge or something along those lines, people are kind of trying to, I guess, look for other ways or find other ways to increase their money and kind of save their money, like we were talking a little bit about at the beginning of the show. And Bitcoin has been that way for probably a lot of the younger generation here. And I think inflation too is kind of becoming to the forefront of majority of people's brains because, like, just like you said, you go to the grocery store, you see like a deal on something that you normally buy, you're like, all right, I got to stock up because these prices are going up. I got to continue to buy these things in bulk that when they're cheaper or whatever, just because maybe not everybody understands why inflation occurred, but they do understand that, hey, I used to go to the grocery store, it used to be $100 and now it's $150 for the same basket of goods. So everybody's kind of feeling that and feeling gas prices or whatever jumping through the roof. It's people definitely are starting to notice these things where it's not just, okay, the things are rising 5-10 cents. It's like things are doubling, tripling in price.
Man, no kidding.
Yeah, I mean,
The cost of chicken has gone
yeah,
through the roof.
I was about to say too, the cost of gas too near me. I think, a year and a half ago, it was floating around $2, and I drove by a gas station near my house, and it's $4.75 today, which is not like California numbers or anything like that, but for Florida, that's pretty damn high to say the least.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's crazy, man, and it's getting worse. I think it's going to continue to get worse until we hit a breaking point, but I don't know when that will be. I truly don't.
Yeah,
I mean, I would have, if I'm being honest with myself, I thought it would have happened already.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we'll see. I saw a thing today too that they estimated the GDP growth from 1.9 was the original 1.9% was the original growth estimate, and now that's dropped to 1.3. And we already were negative GDP growth in the first quarter. So if we, drop below that 1.3% estimate, or we drop below, zero on that estimate, it's a negative growth. That's a recession. So I feel like we're kind of close to that. We got another month to see, and I don't know. I mean, if in my opinion, I still feel like we're in one just because of how much we're seeing inflation, and then other things around me like the service industry. You go to the grocery store, you go to any restaurant, there's always the now hiring sign, and the service now is just worse now than it ever has been in my adult life. So yeah, I just think that we've got a long way to go, and unfortunately, I hope that it's not going to be a rough go of it, but I'm not too optimistic when it comes to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, man. The first 10 years was like Bitcoin figuring out what it was going to be, making sure it was going to succeed. Now I think we're to the point where it will succeed. It's just, it's going to take a while. Like this decade is going to be the one where people go from skeptics to believers. But we are early on, the event that kicked off hyper Bitcoinization happened 2 months into the decade. So we're still in the early innings, and I think it's important to remember, right? This is an exponential thing. So even though it may seem like it's been a while, all of the progress happens at the end.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So, yeah, so on that note too, I think more and more companies are going to try to figure out how to utilize everything and make more money. And so on that topic, Oman's, I believe I'm saying that correctly, but Oman, OMAN, is an investment authority, and they're now encouraging their clients to back U.S. firms to mine crypto and
Like the
Bitcoin.
country?
Yeah, so no, it's an Oman. Yeah, I think it's an
Like
investment.
Oman is a country
Well, it says that
in the
Oman
Middle East.
story says the Oman Investment Authority was a part of.
Oh yeah, okay. So that's probably like the sort of the sovereign wealth fund for the country of Oman. I would guess probably what they do in Saudi, Dubai, Kuwait, a lot of these places. They take some of these oil profits and they create like a sovereign wealth fund, and then they have those invest in multi-purpose uh, investments. It looks like it's a sovereign wealth fund. That's exactly right.
Oh, okay,
So this is a
cool.
way for them to prolong the oil in the country, right? The oil, once they pump it all at the ground, how do they diversify their country's natural resource?
Yeah, exactly. So they're now, putting an equity stake in energy companies to use some of that flare gas to mine Bitcoin and crypto to a lesser extent. So, yeah, I mean, at first I just thought it was kind of, an investment firm of some sort to like, help some of these oil and gas companies like make some profit. But it seems like, yeah, you're right that it's a country's sovereign wealth firm. So, yeah, well, what's your reaction to this? And I guess overall, just oil and gas companies using that flare off gas to mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, big money is energy. It's a derivative of energy. Everything is energy, whether it's plants, whether it's a table, whether it's cow, a steak on your table, or Bitcoin. Um, all of these things are, chemical, mechanical, potential, digital, which is a new, type of non-reproducible energy. So it's a encouraging first off, but also not surprising to see that like the biggest oil OPEC nations that are in the Gulf of Oman, the Persian Gulf, you've got Qatar and the UAE and Saudi Arabia. I mean, every like Brandon, right? The difficulty of mining Bitcoin is going to go up so high that the only every Bitcoin miner is going to be an energy company because you're going to have some sort of vertical energy integration to gain a competitive advantage. And even then, that competitive advantage is only temporary because of the difficulty adjustment, the halving subsidy over time. It's truly like not a good industry to be in. Like if you were like, hey, I want to invest in like a company, Bitcoin mining is probably the last thing I would ever invest in. And I say that as someone who's invested in Bitcoin mining companies. Like it's the most ruthlessly competitive, instantly arbitraged away. Like anytime you get a competitive advantage, you put more hash rate online, and then like the difficulty adjustment goes up. So and then even if you do get a sustained competitive advantage, the having subsidy gets you over time. So anyway, the reason I'm saying like elaborating that way is that because it's such a ruthlessly competitive industry, the only industries that will do it in the future are it's like this is a tented a tertiary type of revenue stream that was going to cost us money because we were flaring, and now it doesn't cost us money, so it's actual like there's a net profit there. But if you're just pumping that electricity from the grid like Riot, I don't know, they're in trouble.
Yeah, it's interesting you say it that way because I mean it's true, right? I think we see Bitcoin mining, or at least many people see Bitcoin mining as like an extremely profitable industry, because I think last year the industry was valued at like $15 billion overall. So obviously, it's a very large industry, but it's difficult to get a competitive advantage by design, right? So they want it to be decentralized. They don't want somebody to get a big competitive advantage and be able to like essentially just mine a bunch more Bitcoin than the next company. So yeah, it's interesting that you put it that way, but I think it's also yeah, I think a lot of these companies are going to start using the flare gas and other things that is like potentially wasted energy just to, yeah, like you said, make a profit. And I think Jack Dorsey actually tweeted out a while ago that Bitcoin encourages the use of renewable energy, and I think we'll start to
It
see more
does.
and more companies like this, more and more places use some of that wasted energy to mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it'll be the problem with renewable energy today is that it's subsidized, so it's not self-sustaining. What did they subsidize it with? Fake money that they print. So
Yeah, exactly. Carbon credits and all that kind of stuff too. So, yeah. So now, kind of getting away into out of Bitcoin into a little of the shitcoin space. The former head of product of OpenSea, as I like to call it, OpenSeized, got indicted after some insider trading. So I'm not sure if you caught this story, but Nathaniel Chaiston. I'm not sure if I said that right. So if I didn't say it, his last name correct, I apologize. But he was previously accused of using a secret Ethereum wallet to purchase NFTs based on some confidential information that was soon to be featured on OpenSea's homepage. And then recently he got arrested again for another kind of insider trading thing. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of these, shitcoin casinos and NFTs and all that kind of stuff. They're starting to get rug pulled, and a lot of these big CEOs and people that made quite a bit of money off of them are starting to, get hit with some of these regulations and get hit with some of these sanctions and other things like that. So, what do you think? I guess the future is for a lot of these. Shit coins and altcoins and NFTs and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that they're still going to be around for a little bit longer, or do you think like during these bear markets although it's tough for Bitcoin, it's kind of good to kind of pluck away some of these shit coins?
yeah, purge the weak, get them out.
Yeah,
That's why we haven't bottomed yet. There's a lot more shit coins to get burned.
yeah, and I think
There's still tokens called Pancake Swap that are over $1. So when
I know
that changes, you let me know.
that's hilarious. I know that there's one coin called Santa Coin, and like every like July or December 24th or something along those lines, like right before Christmas, it pumps real quick, and then it's a big rug pull, and it's almost like by design where that happens. So I don't know. I mean, we've seen this, we've seen Luna, we've seen a lot of other critiques of other people who run
Yeah.
exchanges and other tokens too, widely on Twitter. And I think that it's just going to kind of continue, and more people are kind of be going for these, maybe billionaires or millionaires or whatever, people that made a lot of money off of this stuff because they're the ones that suffered and got rug pulled. So it's the average investor that kind of took the hit, while these big investors or people who created these platforms kind of use that to their advantage to kind of sneak around and profit and make huge fiat gains. So it's unfortunate that this is a story, but I feel like anytime I hear a story out of OpenSea, it's something extremely negative. I don't think I've really heard anything positive about it, except for that just, people are able to buy NFTs about it. Like nobody has really come and raved to me about OpenSea or anything along those lines. But I've heard the people's NFTs getting lost, and then now their former head of product is now getting hit with some serious sanctions and being indicted on some insider trading. So.
Yeah, man, dude. Shitcoin's gonna shit, dude. Honestly, like, oof. Like this stuff. Gary Gensler's talked about all this stuff being securities. Let it happen. Like, I think the purge is necessary so we can resume higher, right? Like, the market is weak, and it's because of stories like that.
Yeah. And I think, people who go through rug pulls, as long as they don't get turned completely off of Bitcoin or of crypto or something along those lines, that they usually kind of come and find Bitcoin and become Bitcoin maximalists after that. So it
a lot
sucks.
of yeah, a lot of maxis were born the last couple weeks from the Terra incident. Unfortunately, right? Like, a lot of people lost a lot. Shoot, man, I know people personally that have. But necessary evil. Shake up the weak hands, I suppose.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, you never want to see people or friends like lose money, but I mean, you can only help somebody so much, right? Like you can only tell them like, "Hey, I'm a Bitcoin only person and this is why," but at the end of the day, somebody's going to get curious and maybe they'll get fooled by some of these shit coins, and that's unfortunate, but like you said, it's maybe shaking out some of the weak hands and bringing some people and creating some Bitcoin maxis too. So unfortunate things that are going on, but I think overall, like it'll help the Bitcoin space in the end, in the long run, which is, I guess, what really matters.
Yeah, man. My grandma survived the Great Depression, and I personally grew up in New Orleans. We went through like Hurricane Katrina when I was real young, and she gave me this rock. It was like, "This too shall pass" was engraved on it, so it's fine. Like, take this rock, I look at it. This will pass. Like, this is anything. It doesn't matter what it is. That's what was like. I was like, I don't know, man. I was young when she gave me that, and she passed away when I was young too. And it's like the like the profoundness of that statement. Like, whatever it is, it'll pass. The greed, the fear, they'll both pass. Such is the nature of life. Like, it's a cycle, man. So we're gonna build stronger than like the 2020 scam coins. Hopefully there'll be better regulation guidance, and the Cash App ecosystem will have been built, and there'll be a miner in every home, and the nodes will be there too. And I'm really excited about the future for what Bitcoin can provide. Honestly, Brandon, it's not there yet, dude. If the dollar hyperinflated tomorrow, it would be a nightmare. People would be ravaging, they'd be breaking into people's homes because the Bitcoin ecosystem is not ready to onboard 1 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion people. So I'm glad that it's crashing, because what happens is that people who already get it, they have a greater opportunity to accumulate larger amounts. And then in the future, they're going to be armed. I think it's definitely an opportunity, but I view it as an obligation too, to then contribute. Like, dude, the most exciting thing in the world to me is for the dollar to collapse and have, one fraction of a total supply of wealth, and then be able to take that wealth that I saved and sacrificed for and contribute that to something that's like to build a better world for the future, for our kids, for our grandkids. Because like, you can't take any of it with you anyway, so what the hell does it matter, right? Like, any goals that you have are short-term centric. So like, Bitcoin's this first system that allows you to think beyond yourself too. Maybe that's like part of the amazingness of it, is that it's like gives you a framework to look beyond yourself and actually recognize the contribution you can make.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think like we've come a long way in the Bitcoin ecosystem, but I agree. I don't think like we're there yet, and I think bear markets are perfect time for people to build and really make some great products and great stuff to help the network as well as the asset. And yeah, and like you said, for the people that get it, they have a good chance to accumulate at a lesser price, which is great, and also start to build and build some cool shit. So hopefully, we're getting there, and I see like a lot of projects, a lot of companies popping up here there regarding Bitcoin and Bitcoin the asset. So I'm bullish on the space, but I agree with you there that I think like we still got a long ways to go and a lot of work to do. But I'm excited to see a lot of these people and brilliant people at the very least come in and start to make some cool shit around Bitcoin to say the least. And speaking of that, we actually have a story about along the lines of technology and kind of like Bitcoin adoption. So Verifone and Lavu are now enabling Bitcoin payments for their customers. So Lavu is a major global restaurant software and payment solution provider that's basically like they're strictly in the restaurant industry, and they've partnered with Verifone, which is a global fintech leader and payment solution provider, probably similar to like a Square or something along those lines for people in the United States. But I believe this company is more global and not necessarily directly just in the United States. But the basically with their press release says that millions of restaurants will now more easily meet rapidly evolving consumer behavior, and most notably, the accelerated shift to digital and split payments, whether splitting a bill with a large party, paying using cryptocurrencies, or spreading payments over time. The Verifone user experience is simple. Customers select their desired advanced payment method on their Verifone terminal and use that in the mobile device to complete the transaction. So it seems kind of like an Apple Pay of sorts to pay with Bitcoin, and they did say cryptocurrency, so I'm not sure which other ones that they're
Yeah, Dogecoin for sure. Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
would,
I've seen these, Brandon. They Verifone.
mhm.
I've seen those point of sale terminals at like different restaurants, and usually it's like places with a clerk, like a checkout counter, like a convenience store or something like that. And Lava is, I think, a point of sale terminal. Square, they're all building them in, like National Cash Register with Strike. It's all like Bitcoin's the money of the future. So this stuff is like Jack Mallers talks about this like game theory, right? It's like you're forced to compete. You're forced to adopt. Like pawn to E3.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think too, I have my buddy Bitcoin Gandalf. I brought up the point of, what would you rather have, like Bitcoin as legal tender or, or yeah, which I asked the question, which continent or region would adopt Bitcoin as legal tender faster, Latin America or Africa? And he raised the point. He's like, I'd rather not even have it as legal tender. I'd rather just get rid of capital gains tax because people would just use the most accessible money and the easiest one for the consumer. So let the free market decide. And now I'm starting to subscribe to that theory as well, because we're getting things in technology like this where people now have the option. Granted, I think in the United States people will still probably use dollars, and they don't really maybe see the financial incentives or the use case of using Bitcoin, except for maybe some Bitcoiners here or there. But I think that around the globe we're going to start to come around to people using Bitcoin more often, and more people are going to start to move away from the dollar. And I think, like we kind of said earlier, it's going to be like slowly then rapidly. So, we've had El Salvador move slightly off like the dollar standard, trying to move towards like the full Bitcoin standard. I wouldn't be surprised to see more Latin American countries do that. and then Latin America does it, and maybe some European countries here or there, and then before you know it, you blink, and it's a Bitcoin standard around there. So my biggest worry is that the United States is going to try to hold on to the global reserve currency, granted, because they have the most to lose when that changes, but that they don't adopt Bitcoin fast enough. So I hope that changes. But like seeing a lot of these things, like Verifone and other these point of sale terminals to allow Bitcoin and other crypto payments.
Yeah, man. I mean, each of these services helps adoption, right? So each store it's in, hey, like, oh, I'm checking out. Oh crap, they accept Bitcoin, right? Maybe that's their orange pill moment, right? Those multiply, they spread. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen like a couple signs that people accept Bitcoin. And I every time I see the sign, I always ask the server or whoever it is, waiter, and I still haven't got one that understands anything that I'm talking about. So maybe it's just the owner from up top that put that out there. But yeah, I think like you said, that might get people at least like noticing it more when they see that orange bee just out there saying like we accept Bitcoin. So maybe that'll change some people and open some people's eyes for sure. And then now the last story that I'd like to go over with you. We kind of talked about a little bit earlier with the Luna and Terra, but I think that there's starting to be an increasing trend of Bitcoin starting to decouple from shitcoins. So we've seen, Bitcoin yesterday was up. So we're recording this on Wednesday, June 1st. I think on the 31st, Bitcoin was up like 2% or something, and Ethereum was actually down, which usually it's, normally the swings are kind of not correlated, but somewhat correlated, where maybe the shit coins are more volatile. The higher swings are a little bit higher up, and the downward swings are more down. And we're kind of seeing that now with a lot of these shit coins, especially in a bear market. So it seems like Bitcoin's starting to decouple. Do you still think, or do you feel that way? And I guess do you think like more of these shit coins they're still gonna hang on for dear life for a while?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're correlated. When Bitcoin goes up, altcoins eventually go up. Bitcoin goes down, altcoins go down. I think the magnitude of the moves is over exaggerated in both directions. So altcoins go up way more. That creates shitcoiners. Altcoins go down way more. That creates Bitcoin maxis, right? So, but yeah, I mean, what's more surprising to me is the correlation between Bitcoin and the financial markets. Um, the thing that it's supposed to sort of hedge against. But I don't object to the reckoning of the altcoins. In fact, I think it's necessary.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that was going to be my next question, as like, with your financial advisor background, a lot of the arguments that I hear is like Bitcoin's very correlated with growth stocks, or some of these like fintech companies. Do you kind of see it that way as well? Or, what do you think is going to take for Bitcoin to, I guess, kind of
Yeah,
get decoupled from some of these stocks and financial markets?
yeah. I mean, it's correlated, but if Bitcoin goes up 1,000x and growth stocks only go up 10x, they've went down 99%, even though they look like they're going in the same direction. So, um, this whole financial reset to me is going to be full of narrative rhetoric. So it's hard to pay attention in dollar price. What you should look at is the stock price in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if like more of those platforms or services offer that too. Just because I think that's like a good comparison. I want to start doing that, but I know like only a couple places that you can kind of like go on the web and search that as well. And I know like how I kind of got orange pilled was the We Study Billionaires podcast by Preston Pish, and that's when he had like Saifedean and Plan B on like a while back. And it was just kind of like an off end episode. It was before he really started doing the Bitcoin specific one. And he said, it was right before they started printing money. And it was like he was kind of worried about the COVID crisis and everything like that. And he was saying at that time that's what he was doing was analyzing stocks in Bitcoin opposed to dollar terms. And that's how he would decide whether or not he would invest in a company. And he said, eventually he just kind of sat on the sidelines and wouldn't be investing in there, and he'd just be putting his money in Bitcoin. Um, and I think, I'm not sure if that's what he's doing now. I don't have any knowledge of that.
Well,
Yeah.
if you go to Cash Money, CACHE cashmoney.io/stocks. This is a page that I maintain, and it actually tracks the real time stock prices in Satoshis. So, for example, Berkshire Hathaway is 10.1 million sats today, but in January it was 6 million. So, Tesla today is 2.5 million sats, but in January it was 2.2. So, tracks the price of stocks in real time. Because I think that's where you should, 30, 40 years from now, Brandon, we're going to quote stocks and stats. So when we look back at what the stocks did in the early 2020s, history books will be rewritten to fit the narrative of what happened in sats. And they'll say, oh, that was the great crash of the fiat world where the stock market fell 99% in sats. All right. Like it'll be a whole different narrative than we think we're living in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how everything kind of rewrites itself after all this is said and done. Because, I mean, as much as I hope that it's not, I feel like there's going to be some doom and gloom ahead, and it's unfortunate. But it's the best thing that we can do now is just prepare ourselves and stack as much sats as you can, because I think that's the best savings technology and the best way to kind of get out of it. And I think you've feel around the same way. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so I guess what is to sign us off, what is one word of advice, or maybe not financial advice or anything like that, but how are you preparing yourself or others to I guess prepare for the impending financial crisis, if you believe there is one kind of impending?
Work hard, trade your finite time for finite things, like whatever that finite thing is. Right. My finite things, Bitcoin, art, trade, like figure out what you're good at, focus on that, turn it into an asset that's not going to lose value. It's not that complicated. We're in a growing world, more people, maybe like the same or like slightly less number of things.
Yeah, there you go. Keep it simple.
Supply and demand. Boom.
Yeah, keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, stupid. So I mean, that's like the biggest thing for me with Bitcoin is like, it's just it seems almost obvious, especially now with all the money printing and kind of the never ending of it, and the call for more money printing, and where is all this money coming from, and all this and that. So, but not to try to end it on a doom and gloom note, I think that overall Bitcoin right now is the time to build, and I think building cool shit is definitely going on. You guys are doing great things at Casa, and so Zach, thank you so much for your time. Why don't you sign us off and tell us where people can find some information on Casa and yourself and what else you got going on?
Yeah, man. So I host the Value Stack podcast. We just had Mark Mariah on there. Talked about relationships and how Bitcoin can be used to build them, and how to have a growth mindset. So if you're into existential type stuff like that, you can check our podcast out at valuestack.xyz. Somehow I get to be paid to do what I consider like a virtuous thing at Casa and helping people take custody. So I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to do that. And you can check Casa out at keys.casa. There's a 30-day free trial if you want to learn how to pair your own hardware device. Shoot, a lost key shouldn't equal lost Bitcoin. Like, it's as simple as that. Because keys get lost. I can tell you, dude. Imagine if you lost a key and like and that meant if you owned the house, also losing the house. Like, you would think twice about having a spare. So yeah, man. I thank you so much for having me on tonight. We'll be on again at 100K.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely have you on again. And what was that one website again that you said you maintained to price stocks in Bitcoin? Because I want to.
Yeah, cashmoney.io. So if you go to valuestack.xyz, that's a redirect page that brings you to Cash Money. Nobody knows how to spell Cash Money, so I just bought another domain and redirected it. So, but it's Cash Money, CACHE, cash, like computer cash. Cashmoney.io/stocks.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate your time. And everybody go check out his podcast, Casa, and cashmoney.io, CACHE money.
It is.
All right.
Man. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Cheers.